Pretty simple, isn't it? Well, in their eyes, it stands in the way of progression in American society. The Fourth Amendment, this is huge. When I talk about the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, INS, and all of those, the Fourth Amendment is what they have gutted. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by an oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things being seized. Pretty clear, isn't it? NSA has violated this with impunity on a massive scale. They've come out and said, well, we consider it reasonable. Oh, you do? Why don't we go back and read this again and change that? They're not going to. That is a monster. It's a system that's in place. To get rid of it, it would be, nothing's impossible, but it's close to it. The Second Amendment, under attack. That's a separate lecture, but I want to read it. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The progressives, well, that's talking about the Army. You know, the militia. It's not talking about personal owning of firearms. Okay, well, let's look what the Founding Fathers said about that. And this is the only slide I'll use because I've got about 40 on this one. George Mason. I ask, sir, what is the militia? It is the whole people. To disarm the people is the best and most effectual way to enslave them. Samuel Adams, and he included the creator in his quotations of the Declaration of Independence. And the United States Constitution be never construed to authorize Congress to infringe the just liberty of the press or the rights of conscience, or to prevent the people of the United States who are peaceable citizens from keeping their own arms. How much clearer can you get than that? And there's more. There's multiple more quotes than that. But just so you know, under attack. It's a freedom. An armed people is what? It's a check on tyranny. Here's where we're going today. Since 9/11, we have the most erosion and degradation of our freedoms since 9/11. The Founding Fathers saw this in Britain themselves. They saw this happen. John Adams. The means of defense against foreign danger historically have become the instruments of tyranny at home. We need more national security because of 9/11. Well, yeah, of course we do. But their interpretation of national security, in other words, the massive removal of Americans' rights in the name of national security. And if that happens, we lose our freedoms more than the terrorists could do themselves. Here is my master's degree is in forensic psychophysiology. Blah, blah, blah. That's a big word for detection of deception, kind of detecting lying. So I've had a really tough last 5 years, let me tell you. But this is how it goes. This is what deception is. 90% truth. Government expansion, secrecy is necessary to counter the threat of terrorism because it's big and it's worldwide. Well, yeah, there is a threat of terrorism. And we do need to keep the names of our assets and TerraCell's penetrations secret. Yeah, we do. So that's true. The problem is this. What deception is, there's always 10% lie added in there. It's a little leaven added into the lump. Just that 10% lie. But to do that, to protect us against terrorism, we have got to eliminate or reduce the First and Fourth Amendments, the protections that are necessary for what they call their definition of national security. That's the 10% that is stuck in this huge lie that we need this massive government apparatus to fight terrorism. The war on terrorism, they always say. And that is the excuse for undermining the Constitution of the United States, and it's intentional. All right, let's start with this. The United States Patriot Act. Sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah, the USA Patriot Act. I'm a patriot. All right, I like that. That's good. Protection against terrorism. However, it backfired. One of the greatest losses of American freedoms constitutionally in the last 50 years. This is a quote, constitutional attorney. No one knew the act contained legislation that turned the CIA, the FBI, and the INS into what amounted to a secret police. And I'm going to prove that. What was feared when they created the CIA back in the Truman administration was there was a lot of dissension to the State Department, FBI, and others. They were afraid the CIA was going to become a secret police, a Gestapo, engaging in torture, engaging in things outside the law, on and on and on and on. Loss of freedoms, backfire. U.S. Patriot Act gave broad sweeping powers to the federal government. Huge powers. Huge. 342 pages of complex legal technical jargon. That's how they do it. The Affordable Care Act, what is that, 2,000? At total, it's 4,000 pages, I think. You make a bill long enough and complex enough, congressmen and senators don't have time to read it. So they just chuck it aside and then they sign off on it. Not a bad strategy. It amended 12 federal laws. Most congressional representatives, and the count that I got was 70. 70 congressmen and senators didn't even bother to read it and just signed off on it because it sounded good. Well, we need to hold them accountable. They need to read these bills. They represent us. And whether they're busy or not, they need to read this stuff, especially now. Some of the executive orders that are starting to pop out, they need to read those. It gutted provisions of the U.S. Bill of Rights, which I'm going to show you shockingly. It violated the First and Fourth Amendments, as I mentioned, and this is a quote from Senator Horn when he's in office. "We will lose the war on terrorism without firing a shot if we sacrifice the liberties of the American people." And that's what we've done. We have eroded our liberties more than Al-Qaeda or any other terrorist organization could have done. We've done it to ourselves. They're laughing at us. I mean, they're rejoicing at what we've done to ourselves. But that's what government does. Government always grows in its power above the people. It's the nature of government. It expired, Patriot Act 1 expired in 2009 with a bipartisan vote of 95-4, and there is now Patriot Act 2, which was approved. The majority of Patriot Act 1 is included and preserved perpetually in Patriot Act 2. We'll talk about some of that. Patriot Act 2. In the Patriot Act, they define terrorism. Well, that sounds good, doesn't it? Oh yeah, man, we're all against terrorism, but it was their broad definition that was the problem. That broad definition includes groups working for political change based on their ideology, nailing a protest poster to a courthouse. I don't know how many would like to do that. I know that thought has crossed my mind. Participating in a picket line, engaging in anti-abortion protests. I sat in a police academy years ago. This stuff has been growing for 20 years. I sat in a police academy 20 years ago where the instructor got up during a terrorism lecture and told us one of the terrorism groups we're concerned about are pro-life activists. That was 20 years ago in a law enforcement agency. Greenpeace, taxpayer protests. Well, I think we've kind of seen that one attacked lately, haven't we? NRA political actions. And the new one, preppers. I saw a Department of State memorandum that stated that the preppers engaged in preparing for economic collapse are dangerous to the United States and threats to national security. Now, I know there's several preppers in this room, if you want to call them that. My wife and I happen to have a store of food in the back of our house. The economy's having problems. Most people that we know, doctors, lawyers, accountants, secretaries, moms, dads, pastors, are a prepper in one way or another because we're facing an economic collapse. But now that falls under the definition of a potential terrorist, and I've seen that in a DHS memo. The FBI was given the power under the Patriot Act to conduct sneak and peek searches in Americans' homes and businesses without a warrant. And I know one particular case where they went into a family's house and did this, and they were not terrorists. They were questioning what the government had done and covering something up. They enter homes, examine documents, they'll search your computer files, they'll look through your possessions, they'll confiscate files, I'll show you an exact case, and documents without a warrant, without ever notifying the resident that they were even there. Fourth Amendment violation on a huge scale, big time. Now this is their claim. I've got a whole section on when a government lies to its people, and I list the lies that we've been told under oath by our government officials. And we'll get to that later on. The FBI went before a congressional investigation where they demanded to know how many times have you entered Americans' homes secretly and without a warrant and collected their personal information. How many times have you done that? And this is what the FBI director said. We've never done it. We don't do that on American citizens. We only do it on terrorists. So they pressed further with a couple of whistleblowers in the FBI, some of the data that Congress gathered themselves. They found out, well, they'd done it 47 times. No, we got evidence right here and emails, you've done this 47 times. All right, maybe there's 47 terrorist plots across the United States. Okay, maybe no, we cannot accept that. I don't care if there's one. They don't go in a house without a warrant. So they pressed them further. No, 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 no. We got more information that says it was a lot more than 47, Mr. Director. How many was it? Then he admitted, well, all right, we've done it 2,000 times against American citizens without a warrant, secretly, leaving their house without them knowing we were there and collecting files from their computer. So they got some more information. No, it looks like it's more like at least 2,500. Now why don't you start telling the truth to us? We happen to be Congress. And this is what he said, if you can believe it. Well, we can't remember how many times we've done it. Now, having a background in detecting deception, that's called a lie. Okay? You don't hear many people say that, but it's a bold-faced, flat-out lie when they cover up information like that. In other words, they're not telling people how many times they've done it. In a constitutional government, they're doing this, and it's all because of the Patriot Act. Oops, okay. The FBI is able to use what's called a national security letter. Anybody know about those? Oh, man. They will take a national security letter under the Patriot Act, walk into your business, and say, for any reason, remember the broad definition of terrorism, it's gotten even broader now. We're doing a terrorism investigation. Here's a national security letter that says you, Mr. Businessman, have got to turn over all the information on Fred Johnson. Bank accounts, credit information, everything. We want to know all of his or her financial data. And they present this national security letter. The business is forced by law to hand that information over to the FBI, carte blanche. And then they're told in this national security letter, based on the Patriot Act, if you don't comply, or if you tell the person under investigation, if you tell Frank Jones we were here, you face criminal penalties, and we'll put you in jail. That's what the Patriot Act, the authority that they have given to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Complete silence and cover-up of what they're doing when they're breaking into your homes and your businesses. Constitutional problem yet? Unfortunately, we're just beginning. Wiretap our cell phones without a warrant, and that's the important part. Telephone lines, internet connections, emails, they're able to do so without disclosing the person's name. They call them a DOE target. I've seen that personally used. All that is necessary, again, is to label that person as a terrorist. Their definition. I've shown you on purpose what that definition is. They've now broadened that into, for purposes of law enforcement, which is unbelievably broad. Okay? Electronic surveillance. Anybody know about Project Stingray? Project Stingray uses apparatus like cell towers, and what it does is it vacuums up all of our cell phone calls like a vacuum cleaner and then stores it on an FBI computer. So when you're on the cell phone, we thought this was just NSA, didn't we? Well, when you're on the cell phone, they're scooping all that stuff up and they're storing it on a database. Your cell phone calls, which includes what? Content. The thing that NSA denies that it's collecting, which we have found out that they are. National Security Branch Analysis Center, NSAC, wiretaps cell phones, telephone lines, internet connections, tens of thousands of records from private corporate databases, including your car rental companies, hotel chains, department stores. All of this information goes into NSAC at the FBI. The congressional committees asked them to justify that program and tell them what was in there, and they refused. Now, when a government, I know this having come from one of these, when a government agency refuses to give you information or they give you false information, you know something nefarious is going on. If it smells like a dead fish, probably is. Carnivore is a massive data mining. Anybody heard of Carnivore? There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Carnivore is the same thing. It goes over the internet and scoops everything up, loads it down on a massive computer within the NSA, and then stores it, and this is your personal data, all of it. So it's not just the NSA. Actually, the NSA is turning their data over to the FBI as well. Finally, Congress pressed them. Look, FBI, you are part of the U.S. government. We demand that you give us documentation of what Stingray and Carnivore are doing. And as you'll see with my book, and as you'll see if you watch the hearings, finally, they press them for about a year. You'll see NSA drag out the NSA program for years. Nothing really definitively is going to happen, because what these agencies do, and they know this, and they got staffs of attorneys, they'll drag it out for years until people just kind of forget about it.